Hi, I'm Don Hahn, and welcome to the Disney Animation Research Library. This is the place where all the original artwork from Disney animated films is carefully preserved. And hidden right here among these millions of pieces of artwork, sometimes we're really lucky and find the evidence of an old lost sequence from one of the studio's animated features. And all the existing records indicate that the story of Dumbo went through just about no story changes over the course of production. So when we began our research for the special edition of Dumbo, we weren't sure if we would find anything that was dropped from the film. But we uncovered a series of really odd drawings from 1940 that outline this dark tale of giant mice and prehistoric elephants. And when we went back and dug, we found the original story in this 102-page treatment written by a couple of Disney legends, Joe Grant and Dick Huemer. And we found a chapter that was titled The Mouse's Tale. And in that story, Timothy realizes that Dumbo isn't afraid of him at all. I mean, elephants are supposed to be afraid of mice. And Timothy figures that he just wasn't educated properly. So he starts to tell him the whole story of why elephants are afraid of mice. And this is what it said in the script. First, said Timothy, assuming a very comfortable position on a bale of hay next to Dumbo, you've got to imagine in your mind
things like they are today. You know, with buildings and circuses and automobiles and people and cheese factories. All right, you got that? Now, millions and millions of years ago, everything was a whole lot different. Those were what they called the, unprehysterical times. There was no circuses, and no big buildings, and no automobiles, and no people at all. And not one single solitary cheese factory. There was nothing. You got that? Only some nasty rocks and some great big funny-looking trees. There were elephants in those days, bigger and more hairy and with longer tusks. And they had things pretty much their own way. Life was a regular bed of peanuts. When they were hungry, they reached up into the peanut trees for the goobers that grew big as watermelons in those times. Now, as big as they were, there was one animal that was much bigger. Do you know what that animal was? Ha! You'd never guess. Well, sir, it was a mouse! Mice, 100 times as high as this tent they were. They had eyes as big and bright as searchlights, and big, sharp, white teeth that could bite through the toughest cheese, and tails as long and fat as a sewer pipe. When they walked, the ground trembled, and they threw a shadow a block long. Ho ho! What a time my ancestors had with yours when they came to town. They chased them around and around, the little elephants grabbing each other's tails and running as fast as their little legs could carry them, only to get caught in the end. And if they ran into their caves, the mice reached in with their long arms and dragged them out, still holding on to each other's tails, whole families of them. And when they had them rounded up, they tied their tails together and stood around and laughed and used them as jump ropes and played with them in many other torturous ways. The mice made life just miserable for those elephants. And whatever they did, the elephants couldn't escape them, even when they held up leaves with their trunks and pretended they were trees. Even that didn't fool those mice, who could smell an elephant a mile away. All right, things are different now. Somewhere in all those millions of years, something happened. Now you're big and we're little. So why do elephants go all to pieces today instead of just stepping on us and flattening us out? Why does an elephant run a mile, even when he thinks that there's a mouse around? It's because of the power we once had over him. He thinks of how we teased and tormented and ran him ragged those millions and millions of years ago. It's his curse. An elephant never forgets.
So that's Timothy's story of why elephants are afraid of mice. This artwork proves some considerable creative effort went into imagining what this sequence would look like on film before it was ultimately cut. Why was it cut? We just don't know. But my guess is that Walt, who always had a keen sense for story and how to keep the plot focused, felt that this little side story about Timothy and elephants and mice was just distracting from the main plot. In any case, it's a fun sequence, and I'm really glad I got a chance to share it with you today. Thanks for joining me here at the ARL. Until next time, so long.